Hi guys, welcome to the 6.3, quiz 6.3. That's the third page of your, and this is a video reteach. So if you watch this video, correct your mistakes, see what you did wrong, have an adult sign it, whether it's your teacher or your mom or dad or whoever's in charge of you at the time, and have them sign it, get back to me, and you can retake it to try to get your grade up and get some more points. Okay? Alright, so here we go. So 11 says, is 5, 6 rational or irrational? Now, we've talked a lot about this, but if it's just a plain old fraction with no weirdness in it, like pi or square root of 2 or something like that, so if it's just a plain old fraction, it is rational, because all fractions are rational. So, okay, we can just say something like all fractions are rational. And we've talked about that on the practice test also. Okay, square root of 50, is that rational or irrational? Well, the question you're asking is 50 a perfect square? Well, no number times itself equals 50, so it's irrational. Irrational. And the reason it is irrational, because 50 is not a perfect square. Not a perfect square. And that would be your explanation. So rational on 11, irrational on 12. Okay, so on number 13, there's a vocabulary word that we're struggling with here, and it's integer. So what is an integer? An integer is a negative or positive whole number. So what we're going to do is we're not going to round it in our answer. We're not going to have a decimal. We're going to have an integer answer. So we're going to trap this, but then we're going to round it to the closest integer. Well, let's take a look. So the square root of 76, let's see if we can find two perfect squares that it's between. Square root of 76, because we know it's not a perfect square. Well, let's see here. The square root of 76 is bigger than the square root of 64, and that is 8. And the square root of 76 is less than 91, and that would be 9. So the exact answer of the square root of 76 is somewhere between 8 and 9, otherwise known as 8 point something. Well, let's see here. Between these two, ladies and gentlemen, it's 12 away. So it's pretty far away from the smaller one. It's 12 away. Here, it is, sorry, this is 81, 81, not 91, and that is 5 away. So it just happens to be much closer to this guy right here. And since I don't want a decimal because it asked for an integer, I just want to choose that number right there because that's the integer it's closest to, and so I'll write 9. No decimal when you're dealing in integers. Alright, so the next one, let's do a quick cheat here. So the square root of 34 is not perfect. It's less than the square root of 36, which is 6. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to estimate it's going to be about, let's say 5.8. So it's not quite 6, so I'm going to say about 5.8. And this guy right here, that's just 5, so I'll just copy him down. Now, what's negative square root of 36? Well, the square root of 36 is 6, and the negative is just kind of long for the ride because it's on the outside. So this is negative 6. And the last one, those are absolute values. Now, the key with an absolute value is it's always positive. So what's the absolute value of negative 5.5? It is positive 5.5. Absolute values are always positive. And that's something you should have probably learned in your 7th grade year. Okay, so let's find the smallest number. Well, because it's least to greatest. Well, what's the smallest? Well, negatives are always the smallest. So I'm going to put the original first. So this is negative square root of 36. That's the smallest. And then I'll just kind of X that out and X that out. What's the next smallest number? 5, 5.5, or about 5.8. Well, I think 5 would be that, and that's just 5 because it's already just plain old 5. Alright, and so what would the next one be? Well, about 5.5. And that's the absolute value of negative 5.5, the original. And that's just equal to 5. And then obviously the last thing that's left is the square root of 34. And so notice what I did. I put the originals in order from least to greatest. Alright, and that would be my answer for that one. Alright, so for this one we want to read the directions very carefully. Find the length of the hypotenuse of the right triangle. Round your answer to the nearest tenth place. Let me underline that. Tenth place. So a tenth place is one place to the right of the decimal. So on this one, unlike number 13, you're actually going to have to put your answer as a decimal. Okay, let's do it. So if, let's say this is my A and this is my B, and that will have to be my C. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Alright, let's plug the numbers in. Well, I have 11 squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. Alright, 11 squared. Let me put arrows here just so I can show you what I'm getting here. 11 squared is 121 plus 9 squared is 81, and that whole thing is equal to C squared. Alright, so I add these up and I get 202 equals C squared. Now, obviously the answer is not 202, it's the square root of 202. So C equals the square root of 202. Now, the next thing I want to say to myself is, well, that's not a perfect square, so I'm going to have to trap it. Well, let me pull this over a little bit so you can see it. So where is the square root of 2? Well, 202. The square root of 202 can be trapped between, let's see here, how about 196 is a perfect square, and you can just read these off your perfect square lists, and 225. Alright, so the square root of 196 is 14, and the square root of 225 is 15, and just to say, what's halfway in between 14 and 15? That's 14.5. Now, I want to erase this because I don't know 202 is exactly 14.5. Well, let's see here. Let me kind of do some work here. So this is, let's say here, that's 6 away, right? That's 6 away. So it's pretty close to the 196. And this guy right here is, let's see here, how far away is that? 23 away. So it's pretty far away from the 225. So it's definitely on this side of the 0.5. So what's a decimal that's bigger than 14, less than 14.5, and pretty close to the 14? I would say, I don't know, somewhere maybe around 14.2, I would guess. That's pretty in between those two. Maybe just go in between these two, about 14.2. We're not going to get too worried about the exact decimal as long as you're on the right side of the 0.5. So we're going to say about 14.2 as equals C. Alright, so I hope this was helpful for your third page reteach. Make sure you're writing your corrections, fixing it, writing sentences why you missed it, and then have a teacher or a parent sign it, and you can retake your test when you bring that back to me. Have a great day. See you later. Bye.